Hey, Tony, I guess first of all, can break down the NKU for us, the game you got on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, scrappy is a word that comes up often, and I'm referring to their team. I think we have the ability to do that too, but by nature, that's been who they are. They're very well coached, and it's easy if you hear their coach speak. He's very well spoken. Since they've been there, they're certainly no stranger to SEC opponents or SEC caliber opponents. You know, they've played Kentucky, and they've gone in and beaten Mississippi State before. They beat Missouri. And then on top of that, you know, to win their league, they got to beat a team like Wright State, which obviously everyone standing here, not just me, has a ton of respect for that program. On offense, very aggressive, not just at the plate, but on the bases. And then we'll see a right-handed pitcher, Gillis, that had an outstanding year for him, and he's older. He's been there, done that. So with that experience, I'm sure he knows what to expect and how to handle it with what comes with a regional.
And Tony, what changes, if any, do you make for your starting pitching compared to what they've been this season, like for a regional setup like this?
Not much. I think if we would have gone through that tournament and done some crazy things like, you know, Causey Stom say, I got an inning for you in the final, and of course Beans always, you know, up for taking the ball. The one thing about last week is it certainly was a long week, and we had a lot of innings to play, but we used positionally the bench a little bit, and then pitching-wise, I thought we spread things out kind of how we would on a normal week. If anything, some guys were a little shorter or a little less work than normal. So I think it's just the start of a new weekend, and it's certainly the start of a new tournament, which can kind of feel like a new season. So what happened in the regular season is great, but it's over with. What happened in Hoover was a lot of fun, but it's over with. And this is a fresh start, and it's 4 teams, you know, vying to be the one team that wins it.
Coach, are you superstitious at all about the #1 seed?
No, I mean, I just don't think there's a label there, but there's a lot of reasons why it doesn't have greater value than any of the other 8 seeds. You know, to be in the top 8 seed, you certainly, you know, meet a criteria that's unique. Really, to be in the top 16 is kind of a goal of everybody. It's so fun to play this weekend at home, but it doesn't mean that road teams can't and won't win. I can promise you this: we did not inherit the 64th best team in the tournament. So after, you know, our game on Friday, there's no reseeding that goes on. So there's certainly a limited amount of value that comes with that. Everybody's good. And only one team, like I said, can come out of this 4, so you just got to find a way to do that, and it all begins with putting your best foot forward on Friday.
How's Russell feeling? Is he a guy you expect to be available through the regional?
We'll see. He's been, you know, eager to compete, which obviously he's done sparingly, and we've tried to kind of meet him in the middle. What's the best thing to do? But he's been sore, and you know, to this point, we've probably pressed it as good as we can. If it was a normal weekend, as you kind of talked about, he wouldn't have pitched, but as we make it to the 5th game of the week and he had some time to bounce back, he wanted the ball and was not going to go more than an inning. So I think if he is available and he does throw, the same thing, you know, 2 or 3 outs, and if not, it's been a staff that's, you know, had to manufacture outs or operate, I should say, without him, other than him being in the dugout, would certainly add value as well.
What's been different for Xander these last 2 starts?
You know, I think if I was in his corner, I'd say, well, the coaching staff didn't cut him short. You know, you talk about each weekend's got a little different flavor and how it's going, and we make a quick decision a few weeks ago. But the last 2 starts, he's taken the ball and thrown with conviction and made us take the ball out of his hand, which, again, he could argue if I was in his corner that the time wasn't even right to do that because he was cooking pretty good. But to go back to the tournament philosophy, we didn't want to gas anybody out, so we felt it was good to get him out when we did, kind of at the pitch count we had thought about. But really, I think him being himself, he keeps getting better every day that he's been on our campus, and then he's been throwing the ball with conviction.
What's the difference between pitching with conviction and trying to do too much, be more than you are?
I think you start to see bad misses. I mean, there's a long list of things, but one thing that pops into my head, you know, it's not just applied to him, is the misses are poor. You know, they're either well out of the zone and you're not throwing strikes, or, you know, when you're supposed to throw to one side of the plate, it floats to the other. Or even when you do hit your target, it, you know, it's not a pitch that is through its target, kind of, again, floats to it, regardless of what style pitch it is.
Do you see Kabar's getting back to cleanup, or do you like the lineup how it is?
It's been a busy week. We haven't got to that spot yet, but I would suspect that, kind of talked about this team. The unique nature of it is they've had success, but we've kind of had this Rubik's Cube deal going with our bullpen, kind of with our starting rotation for a while there. That's settled down. But what we would do in a Game 4 situation or even Game 5 situation has evolved, and the lineup has too. And I think it's relatively fluid, but I think we've kind of settled into, who our guys need to be and how the guys will come off the bench in certain situations.
Tony, how would you assess where Dean is at right now? Maybe a little up and down going into Hoover and then was able to find some results. Just how would you assess where he's at the plate right now?
Yeah, I mean, for us, for baseball, you got to take a big sample size. And, based off the phone interview I had today, my sense is when people watch, that they're into it, they're passionate, so they get frustrated based off 2 at-bats, or they get frustrated off 1 inning. It stinks. You have to be patient as a baseball coach, but you kind of got to take a summary of statistics or sample size. And if you take Dean's sample size, whether it's the whole season, 1 week, 1 month, it's pretty dang consistent. Almost said. I said dang.
What's the differences and similarities of last year's Southern Miss compared to this year's Southern Miss?
Well, new head coach, but a coach that was a major part of what they were doing. So I think you're going to see some similarities out of the pitching staff, and then just that grit that program has always had. They had a lot of success under Coach Berry, and there was assistant coaches that took other jobs and are either head coaches or have moved on and things like that. But kind of that grit and that competitiveness, and I guess you'd call it a blue-collar approach or whatever you want to for brevity's sake. They're going to hook it up, and they'll get after it. Kind of like their fans got after us when we were down there last year. But it was a fun and intense environment, and we were pushed to the absolute brink, and it kind of went both ways. It was a very competitive series. So, the one thing about these regionals, or if you look at the entire thing, as a fan, I wouldn't hope that our players are doing this, but you kind of look at everything. The only team you're guaranteed to play as of now is Northern Kentucky, and then we certainly have to play one other team. But you see it so often where what you think is going to happen doesn't, because this will be chaos, not just in our regional, but all across the country.
When it comes to now entering the regional, what are some of the biggest benefits to seeing every inch of that pitching staff that you did down in Hoover?
That was huge. I think the biggest thing is for those guys to put their cleats in the dirt and have that crowd and the opponent that certainly brings talent to the table, and be in those situations where you got to kind of grasp, mentally what's going on. And what's really going on, if you push aside all the peripheral stuff and the fanfare and how cool that tournament is baseball. And so if you're going to play, you might as well enjoy it, and the easiest way to get off to a start of enjoying it is to be the best version of yourself. And I think you saw Banky and Xander and Marcus Phillips be the very best version of themselves. And if they do that, then the pitching staff kind of goes from this to that. So we have confidence in those guys, and Frank said it about halfway through the year. He can't remember a staff where the numbers were kind of spread out this evenly, obviously with Drew Beam kind of leading the way, but even for the most part, some of his outings ending shorter, not because he's not capable, but we trust the guys in the bullpen. So we trust those guys, and now they can trust themselves a little bit easier because they can take confidence in what they've done.
How encouraging was it to see Billy hit some balls hard on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, you knew it was coming, and the guys say it in the corner of the dugout all the time. The group that's over there is he's got to lead the country in hard contact outs or balls. One time someone said balls over 100 exit velo that end up in somebody's glove, and if you're a good hitter, that's part of the deal. Bregman was like that in college. I remember his junior year, he was scolding balls all over the place, and sometimes they go in the guy's glove. That's part of the deal. But we knew something would happen for him good, and it would be a flare hit and everyone would laugh about it, or it would be a big hit and everybody would celebrate it, and we'll take either one, but I kind of like the way that it went down.
Anything else, Coach?
I know that nobody's 100% health-wise right now. I know we spoke on AJ a moment ago, but overall for your team, health-wise entering postseason play?
Yeah, I think that's the one guy you don't know exactly, if he'll be available or what would be available. But as I kind of scan, down the deal. It was nice Peebles caught the way he did, and that he and Chuck have been involved, so that the three of those guys can be trusted in any situation. Chuck's caught in Omaha, not just a regional. Those guys can be trusted in any situation, but I think they've all helped each other, manage the workload a little bit too. Those catchers in Hoover on every team, my dad was pointing it out, they just soaking wet. So the fact we could balance that out a little bit was huge too. So, and then positionally, our nutritionist and of course Q, they work so crazy hard along with Woody just to make sure these guys are not just, feeling okay, but actually attacking the process of being hydrated or using recovery tools or getting rest or whatever it might be. So come Friday, everybody in the country they'll probably need to calm down more than they'll need rest.
Did you manage your Monday or Tuesday any different given the 5 games in 5 days of movie?
No, not really. We played earlier in the season without a Tuesday game against Auburn. So what we try to do is replicate that week prior to going to Auburn as best as possible. The one added benefit we get out of that is we don't have to travel. So we get to stay here, and then Monday we made a lot lighter than we did that particular week because the guys, even though they got a flight home, everybody got home fairly late. So pretty much similar routine. And then of course, again, for everybody in the country, you get the NCAA practice tomorrow, which will be an hour 15 minutes. And I've seen it before when you try and go an hour 15, 1 second. Doesn't work out too well.
Thanks, Coach.